Let's see how can we integrate quality, environment, and occupational health and safety requirements into our documentation and write integrated procedures. So the first step is planning. Planning means that organizational expectations and requirements are established based on risk and need. This is achieved by developing integrated objectives, vision, mission, goals, and a strategic direction. To do this, you need to understand the context in which the organization operates, macro and micro aspects that affect the organizational performance and environment. And you need to understand the needs and expectations of your interested parties. You need to gather, analyze this data, go and collect this information from your customers, from your top management, supervisors, from the community. What are they expecting from you as an organization? So it's paramount at this level that you organize your management system according to business processes instead of by departments. The organization should determine which processes needs to be documented on the basis of risk-based thinking, including, for example, the size of the organization and its type of activities, the complexity of its processes and their interactions, the criticality of the processes, and the need for formal accountability for performance. Each organization will need different documents. ISO standards don't define the format or the content nor mandatory documented procedures. So the standard doesn't say you have to have 100 documents or you have to have 10 documents. It is up to each organization to decide what documents do they need to have depending on the processes and the complexity of the management system. So processes can be formally documented using a number of methods, such as graphical representations, stories, written instructions, checklists, flowcharts, visual media, graphics of systems. Effective and organized processes can then deliver consistent and accountable operations and the desired objectives and results. When creating your documentation, it is essential to define a structure, a purpose for each level of the documentation. Call it policy, procedures, work instructions, guidelines, and forms. Typically, you will define your documentation as a pyramid. Policy at the top to establish the commitment towards quality, environment, health and safety, energy, continual improvement. Then you will have procedures that define how you're going to achieve this commitment. What are the steps that you need to follow? Sometimes organizations decide to have work instructions to provide a more detailed step-by-step on processes. And you always are going to need forms that evidence that those steps are achieved and performed consistently as you define them in your procedures or work instructions. I recommend you to have a template for each type of document, as well as defining a writing style for your management system. This will ensure consistency and alignment across the organization, along with easier familiarization and association with the management system's documents. So how do you write an integrated procedure? Once your document structure is defined, you can start documenting the processes within your organization. In order to write an integrated procedure, you need to follow these steps. First, map the process. You could use the SIPOC approach. You could have a process diagram. You could have a flowchart. The aim is to have a clear overview of the process. What is the purpose of it? How it's undertaken? Who is involved in it? And when is it required? And the interrelationship within the whole organization. Second, you need to establish your audience. Who is going to read your document? Are you writing to top management or the operators on the ground? Do they have the time to read 100 pages, or do they want to do their job and understand the minimum requirements to do it safely? What languages do they speak? What is the level of proficiency? When are they going to use it? How are they going to use it? So you need to understand also the requirements for each element: quality, safety, environment, security, energy. What are the considerations in each step for these elements? Then you need to define the method to document the process based on the end user audience needs. Meaning, do you need a text or visual flowchart? How about a combination? Maybe better to have an infographics, a poster. What is it that you need to get these people to use your document? And then you need to define the purpose of your documentation. Is it to provide information and training? Is it to set a standard way of doing this task? What are you trying to achieve with this document? For instance, let's say your employees need to dig a hole. And there are a few things we need to think about when we're digging this hole. First, where does the hole need to be? What size is it? And how deep it needs to be. These are the quality considerations. Secondly, what are we going to do with the earth that has come out of the hole? Where do we need to put it? What do we need to do with it? These are the environmental considerations. Third, how are we going to dig the hole so we don't hurt ourselves? Third, how are we going to dig the hole so that we don't hurt ourselves? Some companies will have 3 separate documents: an inspection and test plan detailing who has to inspect and sign off that the hole is in the right place and is of the correct size. Then you will have an environmental management plan to talk about how to dispose the soil, what records you need to complete, what to do in the event of a spill, and other environmental considerations. And then you will have a job safety analysis to identify the occupational health and safety risk and the controls that you need to have in place to prevent injury. These are 3 documents for one task. So do you think that's going to be beneficial for an employee to understand and read 3 documents to perform one task? Is it really the best way that you could do it? The solution here is to create one set of instructions that incorporates quality, environment, and health and safety requirements. It doesn't matter whether you are digging a hole in the ground, running a restaurant, or operating a childcare center. Your workers need one set of instructions, one document to follow, which should simply and clearly state what has to be done, how has to be done, and incorporating all quality, safety, and environmental requirements.